Okay. Siyat Shmaya Shabbos Parshas B'Midbar Daled Sivan. So Maimer begins. Vidber Moshe B'Midbar Sinai v'Gomer that Hashem spoke to Moshe in the wilderness, the midbar of Sinai, etc. It's explained in L'Chutei Torah, Shayches Inyan HaMidbar L'Toichen HaKosov. What's the connection between a wilderness, but what it's talking about in the pasuk that it's talking about that Hashem spoke to the Yidden? What does speaking to the Yidden have to do with a midbar? That because of that he emphasized he spoke to Moshe b'Midbar Sinai. So the Medrash explains Shekosher Masher Ne'emar b'Negeh B'Knes Yisrael. Actually, not a Medrash. The Alter Rebbe brings this explanation. Shekosher Masher Ne'emar b'Negeh B'Knes Yisrael. It says in Shir Hashirim concerning Yidden, Mi zois oilam min ha-midbar v'goymer. Who is this that is rising from the midbar? So, Ashal Zeh Isa b'Medrash concerning this pasuk in Shir Hashirim, it's brought down the Medrash Iluya min ha-midbar, that it's rising min ha-midbar. The Medrash's teaching is from the midbar. Now, in this itself, from the midbar can mean literally from coming out of the midbar, can mean from maybe because of the midbar, but also it could be nichlol gam hapirush shemisales lamaylam b'chinas hamidbar, that the Knesset Yisrael is elevated and higher, mizois oila min hamidbar, higher than the midbar. Higher even than the most highest level of the midbar, as he will explain further on what is the level of midbar and what's the highest level of midbar and so on. The idea behind this is the general idea of the midbar. It's a place that is not ready for a human habitation. Like it says, that Yidden followed Hashem in the midbar, lo yoshav adam sham, that a person did not settle over there, does not live over there. This idea that it's not ra'ui li yishuv b'nei adam, there's two ways of explaining it. One way of explaining it, that it's not ready and worthy for a person settling it because it's lower than the person. It's not befitting him. The person is higher than living in a empty wilderness, a place, eres lo zerua, a place that has nothing worthwhile. But there's a sheni, he says, there's a second way of looking at this. Another way of looking at it, it's not worthy for human living over there because it is higher than the level of an Adam, and the Adam cannot be over there, cannot stay in that place. So he's saying, until it's not even possible. It's not just that he actually doesn't live over there, it's not even possible for him to live over there. The idea behind this in the spiritual sense, the wilderness that's below the inhabitants of a person is a level that's lower than the chain order of descent of Kedusha. Adam indicating, as we'll soon mention, the 10 spheres, the level of the Atzilus, the Adam HaElyon Shalakisei, the supernal man that's on the throne. Adam HaElyon, the Eibishter, the 10 spheres, cannot reside over there because it's lower than Seder Shtalshlus. It's the place, the midbar is the place that's found over there, snakes and poisonous snakes and scorpions. These descriptions of what was there in the terrible and awesome midbar correspond to the Shalosh Chipsat Meis. And so that is one idea in Midbar, Asher Lo Yashav Adam Sham. It's too low. The level of Midbar that's beyond a place that the inhabitants of an Adam, it goes on the level, it's beyond the world, the level of Keser. Concerning the level of Keser, it says, Ki loy Adamhu, that Hashem is not an Adam, and therefore he is higher than the level of Adam. That is the level of Midbar, the same level that it says, Loy Adamu, that's the same level of Midbar that is beyond Adam. So now the Rebbe is going to connect the two explanations. Asher Lo Yashav Adam Sham, because it's lower than Midbar, or Asher Lo Yashav Adam Sham, because it's higher than Midbar. These two things are connected with each other. To be able to affect the nullification, the removal of the three klippos hatmeyos that are below Seder Ishtalshus. How do you deal with something that's so low? Top of page Vav, they can only be through the revelation of a level that's beyond measure and boundary. When you deal with a level that's already measured and has a boundary, like Adam Ha'elyon, like the level of the Spheres Atzilus, for example, Yesh Lam Yenika Chulu Klippos, can nurse from there, though what it nurses from Seder Ishtalshus is a very constricted level. So therefore, how do we ensure their total eradication? How do you nullify them and completely remove them? That's through revealing a level that's completely beyond every measure and boundary. That through the levels beyond measure and boundary, they become so totally nullified that they're completely transformed. This is what it says, all your enemies will be cut off. Ki keser oisis koris. Keser and koris are the same letters, meaning the idea of the cutting off and removal of the klippos totally. What can ensure that? Not the level of Adam. You have to go to a level that's higher than Adam. B'midbar shal yashav Adam sham, gilu yakeser dafka, specifically through the level of the revelation of Keser. So he starts in Reis Gimel, v'hinei shtei b'chinas midbar niskaros la'el. The two levels of midbar that is lower than Seder Ishtalshus and higher than Seder Ishtalshus, yeshnam gam nefesh Adam, is also to be found in a person. The neshama of a person is made up of the 10 koiches that correspond to the 10 spheres that they came down from him. So if the person has 10 koiches because it comes from the 10 spheres, so therefore it was then moving for this understood. Just like above there's the 10 spheres, which is the level of Adam, and also l'mayla yesh asas b'chinas l'mayla asas spheres b'chinas kiloy Adam, and above there's also the level that's beyond the 10 spheres, the level of loy Adam, that he's not a Adam. And then there's, in addition to that, there's a level that's below the 10 spheres, below the Seder Ishtalshus, the level of the midbar of the lower level. So to be found in the neshama of a person. There's Eser Koiches Pnimiyim. There's the 10 powers that are the internal soul powers that are enclosed, each one according to their level, according to their place. There's a level that's beyond the 10 koiches in the person. Koiches makifim, these are transcendent powers. That also these transcendent soul powers are drawn down and revealed in the inner powers, and they influence them in an internalized fashion. And on the other end of the spectrum, there's a level that's below the 10 koiches pnimiyim. What does that mean, the avoid of a person? The level that's beyond the 10 koiches, and the level that's below the 10 koiches. Inyan hashtus the kedusha, vashtus the lumazeh. It's the idea of the foolishness of kedusha and the foolishness of that which is opposite of kedusha. To be able to transform the foolishness of the opposite side. It's insufficient to have the avoida by reason and understanding. That is a measured and bounded type of level. There has to specifically be a level of foolishness of kedusha. That's an avoida that's beyond reason and knowledge. It's beyond measure and boundary. Just like we said, the keser, which is the same letters like the word kodesh. Keser is the one that's responsible to cut off the klippus. Like explained the Maimer of the Friedrich Rebbe of Yud Shvat, this idea that the shtus of kedusha is necessary for transforming and defeating the shtus of klippah. It's not just enough to go with tam v'das. So he says in line 29, V'zel gamma inyan the kadeskav yisitarach v'istala yikord kuchabricha b'chol ha'om. This is also the idea that it says that when sitra achra becomes sublimated, when the other side becomes subjugated to kedusha, so then the glory of Hashem leaves upwards or rises upwards in all the worlds. Seemingly it's not understood. Top of page Zion. Why do we need specifically the avoida of sublimating the klippah? Why is it insufficient if we just doing good? We're proactive, doing positive things, Torah mitzvahs. It's also, the person's not sitting back and doing nothing. It's also an avoida. It's also something that he's doing. Why is it specifically necessary to engage with the klippah and to sublimate him? But the idea behind this is the since the avoid of doing good is in a measured way, in a bounded way. It's impossible to affect through the avoida of Asay Toiv, the revelation of the glory of Hashem rising up and leaving becoming elevated in all the worlds. How come? What level is that? Yikara, which is glory, that's kavod. And kavod, shu bechinas makif. The level of kavod, that's the transcendent level. How come? Bedugmas inyan hakavod etz la'ad malamata. Just like glory and honor by a person, that's also not part of the person himself. It's external to him. It's a transcendent, a more higher level than what he himself may manifest through his speech and so on. And therefore, because it's a level of makif, that's why the term that's used in this Zohar, Batistalik Karam, it uses that the glory literally leaves or passes. What does it mean? Like to explain the meaning behind the word istalik is it doesn't mean that the light, heaven forbid, leaves. Rather, because the revelation is from the transcendent level. That's beyond the worlds, the level that encompasses all the worlds. It's impossible for it to become revealed, internalized within the vessel. Therefore, this revelation is called istalik, meaning it's rising up higher, but not that it's leaving. It means that it's transcendent. It's another way of expressing the transcendence of this revelation. And that is the very reason why it could reach everywhere. Like we said before, only something that's higher than Seder Ishtalshlus can deal with lower than Seder Ishtalshlus. Since the revelation that's beyond the worlds, therefore the revelation can be in all the worlds without anything standing in its way. And to be able to effect the revelation of the glory of Hashem rising up in all the worlds. It's insufficient avodah, that's in a measured way according to reason and understanding. Therefore, just doing asay toiv, like he asked at the beginning of the page, will be insufficient, because that is a limited avodah, and from a limited avodah you don't draw down this level that's transcendent. There has to be the avodah specifically of subjugating and sublimating the sitra achra. She avodah shalom did Dvar Malchus, it's avodah beyond measure and boundary. Now, when a person does it that way, so then he taps into the levels above that correspond. So we said that there's a level of midbar, kiloi adam, who beyond the yashav adam sham. And the same thing by a person, there's in his nefesh, there's a midbar that's beyond Adam, and avodah that's doing this kafia, and that's the avodah of shtus dikdusha. But when we tap into our own lo yoshav Adam sham, our own midbar, our own level, it's beyond the koiches pnimim, so then we will tap in through that in Hashem's level of midbar, of lo Adam hu, of lo yoshav Adam sham. Let's see inside line 21. Through this we come to the level of the midbar, it's beyond the level of Adam. That no Adam settled over there. Concerning this level that's beyond Adam, it says Nisa v'gava ma'od. It speaks about Mashiach. It says Al Kain, that Yaskil Avdi, that will be exalted and very high. So it says Ma'oid is Oisis Adam. The word Ma'oid is very much is the same letters like the word Adam, except we're not using the word Adam, indicating El Shazel B'tziruf Shemoira Al Hiyoisei Lamayla Meseder Medidavag Bola, Davke combining it. And instead of being Adam, we make it into Ma'oid, which Ma'oid means very, going out of all constrictions and boundaries. That's the opposite of the entire idea of Adam. That the whole idea of Adam is to be in an organized fashion, in a way that's measured in boundaries. So he explains, what does it mean that Adam shows that it's an organized and arranged fashion. It's known by Arba Shemis, Adam, Ish, Gever, Anish, and the four names that people are called by these four names. Sheshem Adam hu madrega gdoilo lefishu shleim udekul. The name Adam is a very high level because Adam indicates perfection of all the levels. Like it says in Zoyar, Tazria, that it says in Tazria, where it speaks about Adam kiyeh ba'er b'sarei negat saras, an Adam that will have in his skin of his flesh a negat saras, meaning because he's an Adam, because he's such a high level, so the saras, the negative, only touches his external part, only touches his oir. But Al-Qapadim, Adam shows on the highest level. And this is also indicated by the letters Adam. So he says two lines to the bottom, L'chain gam seder ha'oisius hu aleph daled mem. The order of the letters is first aleph, then daled and mem. Shetchila hi ha'is aleph. Initially there's the letter aleph. The koi al alufish al either it's referring to the master of the world, or it's referring to the first power or the first garment of the soul powers, thought. Top of page Ches. Afterwards, it speaks about that it has the letter Daled that refers and hints at the idea of speech. Mem, the koy mais, and afterwards Mem that goes on action. So what do we see over here? We see that it's in a very appropriate way from thought to speech, to action. It's in a very logical, very koiches pnimium type of way. And even if Aleph is Aleph Shaloilim, it's still the way it comes down in an organized fashion, speech and action. Avol ma'oid beligvum, but the level of ma'oid, which means without boundary, very much. It's some things beyond the chain order of descent. Therefore, the way the letters are combined also mixes things up. Instead of going from the Aleph to the Dalet to the Mem, you're going from the Mem to the Aleph to the Dalet. And the Rebbe specifically says that this order is specific, not just that the order is mixed up. And the manner of combination that's beyond Seder Ishtalsel itself. It could be in many ways. It specifically that begins with the letter Mem. It indicates the idea of action, like we mentioned before. The idea in Avodah is the idea of Kabbalas oil. So it begins with the Mem. It begins Kabbalas oil, doing the action what you're supposed to do, before thought, before even speech. We see that Maisa action indicates Kabbalas oil, like the Chazal used the expression Me'asim ala tzedakah, that we can force to give tzedakah. So we find that the word Ma'asim is used from the word Melashon Kfiyah, from the word coercion, which means Shezoy Avoida B'chinas Iskafia. That's an Avoida that indicates that klippa is being sublimated. So again, we're instead of our mind and our thought and our speech, we go straight to breaking klippa. That's the first thing, the Mem of Ma'od, Maisa. Just like the prefacing and saying Nasa before Nishma, that is the same thing. Just like the Mem preceding the Aleph and the Daled, the Maisa preceding the thought and the speech is just like before Matan Torah. What did we say? We said first we will do, and then we'll understand. Why was it necessary before Matan Torah to say Nasa before Nishma? Because we were trying to bring down from this very same level. We were saying that only when a person has the level of Iskafia, has the level of Shtus, the Kedusha, then he taps into the highest, most level that's higher than Adam, from the level of Midbar, Kilo Yashav Adam Sham, because specifically that prior to Matan Torah, we have the Nasa before Nishma. Nasa in the Ma'od Beligvul comes about the idea of Ma'od without any boundary, without any type of limitation. That is something that is accomplished as a precursor to Matan Torah. So now he's in Ois Dalet. He's going to go on to explain that there are we started a mimer with the pasuk in Shir Hashirim. Mizos oilam min amidbar. So the Maimer is going to speak about that there's really two psukim in Shir Hashirim that speak about Mizos oilam min amidbar, and the two different psukim of who is this that is rising from the wilderness, depending on the context that we're going to see soon in tomorrow's Shir, is going to be explaining that talking about two different periods, actually. One is talking about a period of when the Yidden went out of the Midbar after Yetzias Mitzrayim. Another meaning of Mizos Olam Min HaMidbar is going to refer to the level of Tchias HaMesim. And in this time, in Tchias HaMesim, it's understood that it's going to be in a much higher level and a much greater type of avoida, as we will talk about tomorrow.